The city was alive with music and excitement that evening. The streets leading to the grand concert hall were crowded with people from all walks of life, each carrying a sense of anticipation and curiosity. The festival had attracted musicians from across the globe, and the audience had gathered early, eager to witness performances they might never see again. Street performers added to the atmosphere, their music blending with the chatter of festival-goers, creating a lively symphony outside the grand hall. Inside the concert hall, the air was filled with the scent of polished wood and the soft hum of nervous energy. Stagehands hurried back and forth, checking instruments and adjusting microphones. The lights above glimmered like tiny stars, reflecting off the shiny surfaces of the grand piano and other instruments that stood ready to be played. Every corner of the hall seemed to vibrate with anticipation, as if the building itself was aware that something extraordinary was about to happen. Among the performers, an Italian violin virtuoso was making the rounds backstage. Known worldwide for his technical mastery and flawless performances, he carried himself with the confidence of someone who had earned respect through years of dedication. His presence drew a few whispered compliments and admiring glances from other musicians who recognized the skill and precision he brought to every note he played. Yet there was also a hint of arrogance in the way he moved, a subtle suggestion that he believed no one could truly match his talent. Backstage, in a quieter corner, a young Mexican woman was preparing with her mariachi band. She had been performing since she was a child, learning from her family and community, and music was in her very soul. Her hands trembled slightly, not from fear but from the excitement of being on such a significant stage. She adjusted her traditional attire carefully, making sure every detail was perfect. She wanted to honor her heritage and show the audience the beauty of mariachi music. Her bandmates gave her reassuring smiles, silently communicating their trust in her leadership and talent. The young woman took a deep breath and closed her eyes for a moment, letting the memories of her childhood performances wash over her. She remembered playing at small family gatherings in the village square and at local celebrations. Each note she played then had been simple but full of emotion. Now she was about to share that same heartfelt music with a much larger audience, and she felt a mix of pride and nervous anticipation. The weight of the moment settled on her shoulders, but it did not feel like a burden. It felt like an opportunity to prove that her music mattered. Meanwhile, the Italian virtuoso had found a spot near the entrance to the stage and was speaking to a few journalists. He smiled politely but allowed a comment to slip about folk music, mentioning mariachi as an example. He said it lightly as if joking, but there was a dismissive tone that lingered in the air. Some journalists laughed politely, while others raised their eyebrows, sensing the subtle arrogance behind the remark. The young woman, overhearing this from backstage, felt a surge of determination. She understood that the comment was not just about her music. It was about respect and recognition for an entire culture. The lights dimmed slightly, signaling that the performances were about to begin. The audience murmured with excitement, and the young woman could hear the collective heartbeat of anticipation. She glanced at her bandmates, who nodded encouragingly. They began to play a soft tuning note, a ritual that helped them focus and synchronize. The sound of the guitars, violins, and trumpets coming together created a warm, inviting tone that contrasted with the precision of classical music. It was familiar and comforting, yet it held the promise of something extraordinary. Backstage, she watched as the Italian virtuoso stepped onto the stage first. The spotlight followed him as he raised his violin, and the audience erupted in applause. He began to play, and every note was perfect. The precision of his technique, the fluidity of his bowing, and the clarity of each sound were mesmerizing. People leaned forward in their seats, captivated by the display of skill. Some musicians backstage nodded in silent admiration, acknowledging the mastery on display. Yet even as the music soared, there was a mechanical quality to it. A sense that the performance was flawless, but perhaps lacking the raw emotion that comes from the heart. The young woman listened carefully, absorbing the energy in the hall and letting it fuel her own confidence. She knew her performance would be different. It would not be about flawless technique alone, but about connecting with the audience in a way that spoke to their emotions and their shared humanity. She could feel the rhythm of her own heart matching the pulse of the music, preparing her for the moment when she would step onto the stage. As the Italian virtuoso concluded his piece, he received thunderous applause. He took a bow with a confident smile, clearly enjoying the admiration. Then with a slight smirk, he gestured toward the mariachi band, making a comment that implied their music was less sophisticated. The audience laughed awkwardly, not sure whether to take it as a joke or a slight. The young woman's jaw tightened and she felt a surge of emotion. She knew she had a chance to challenge that perception and to show that mariachi music, while different, could be just as moving, intricate, and powerful. Her bandmates began to position themselves for their performance. The young woman adjusted the strap of her guitar and took a steadying breath. The murmur of the audience faded into anticipation, and the lights shifted to highlight their corner of the stage. She could see the faces of the audience members, some curious, some skeptical, and some simply excited to hear something new. This was her moment to connect, to tell a story with music that had been passed down through generations. The young woman closed her eyes for a brief second, letting the memories of her ancestors and the countless performances she had given in small towns and festivals around her country fill her mind. She felt their presence, their guidance, and their encouragement. She opened her eyes, stepped forward, and let her fingers find the strings of her guitar. The first notes rang out clear and full of life, immediately capturing the attention of those in the front rows. There was a softness to the beginning, a melody that felt both intimate and inviting. It was simple, yet it carried the weight of her passion and pride. As the music flowed, she felt a sense of calm take over. The nerves melted away, replaced by a feeling of purpose and connection. Each note, each chord was an expression of her heritage and of the emotions that words could never fully capture. The audience, initially uncertain, began to lean in, drawn by the authenticity and beauty of the performance. The young woman smiled slightly to herself, knowing that this was exactly where she was meant to be. Backstage, the Italian virtuoso watched from a distance. His expression was unreadable at first, but as he listened to the music, a flicker of surprise crossed his face. The simplicity of the opening notes soon revealed layers of complexity, skill, and emotional depth that he had not anticipated. He realized that this was not just a traditional folk performance. It was a demonstration of talent, creativity, and soul. The young woman was commanding the stage in a way that was powerful, magnetic, and deeply moving. The young woman continued to play, her voice joining the melody, weaving stories of love, struggle, celebration, and pride. She felt the energy of the audience respond to every note, every emotion. Their applause and cheers were not just polite. They were genuine, acknowledging the truth and beauty in what she was sharing. She could sense the Italian virtuoso's attention, and instead of feeling intimidated, she felt inspired. This was her chance to shine, to show that music transcends boundaries, cultures, and expectations. By the end of the first few minutes, the young woman had already captured the hearts of many in the audience. People were smiling, clapping along, and leaning forward with anticipation for what would come next. The hall felt alive with energy, a collective experience of joy and connection. She glanced at her bandmates, who were equally focused and in sync, creating a harmonious blend of sound that filled the space with warmth and passion. The young woman knew that this was only the beginning of her journey on the stage that night. The opening moments had set the tone, drawing the audience in and establishing a connection that would carry through the rest of the performance. She felt a sense of pride not just for herself, but for the music she represented and the culture that had shaped her. Every note she played was a tribute, a statement that mariachi music was alive, vibrant, and capable of touching souls everywhere. As the first part of their performance came to a close, she felt a deep sense of accomplishment and anticipation. The audience's reaction had been more enthusiastic than she could have imagined. She knew the night was far from over, but the foundation had been laid. The stage was set for a performance that would not only showcase talent, but also break down assumptions, challenge stereotypes, and celebrate the richness of cultural expression. She took a final breath, ready to continue the journey and let the music speak for itself, knowing that the best was yet to come. The young woman's fingers continued to dance across the guitar strings, producing a melody that was both delicate and powerful. She could feel the rhythm of the music vibrating through her entire body, guiding her movements and filling her with a sense of purpose. Every note carried a story, a fragment of her life and a reflection of the traditions she cherished. The audience, initially skeptical after the Italian virtuoso's earlier performance and remarks, began to settle into the flow of her music, their curiosity turning into genuine engagement. The mariachi band followed her lead, their instruments blending seamlessly. The trumpets added a bright, celebratory tone, while the violins echoed the melody in a way that enriched the sound without overpowering her voice or guitar. The harmony was fluid, natural, and full of life, capturing the essence of mariachi music while elevating it to a level that demanded attention. The young woman's voice, clear and expressive, carried every word with emotion, telling stories of love, loss, and hope that transcended language. As she played, her eyes scanned the audience. Some faces were still marked with skepticism, hesitant to believe that this traditional form could rival the sophistication of classical music. Others were leaning forward, captivated, their expressions softening as they began to feel the emotion behind each note. She knew she had to reach them, not just through skill, but through the raw honesty of her performance. Music was her voice, her argument, and her declaration that mariachi was worthy of respect and admiration. Backstage, the Italian virtuoso watched quietly, his earlier confidence giving way to curiosity. He had seen many talented musicians in his career, but there was something different here. The young woman's performance was not about technical perfection alone. It was about connection, about telling a story that moved people in unexpected ways. He frowned slightly, surprised by the complexity hidden within what he had assumed would be a simple folk-style performance. Every note she played revealed layers of skill, precision, and creativity that challenged his assumptions. The young woman shifted seamlessly from one piece to another, gradually increasing the energy and complexity of her performance. She introduced intricate rhythms and fast-paced strumming, demonstrating her mastery of the instrument while keeping the audience engaged. Her voice, strong and confident, rose above the music, carrying the emotions with clarity and power. Each song transitioned smoothly into the next, telling a story that spanned joy, sorrow, resilience, and celebration. The audience began to respond more visibly. People clapped along to the rhythms, some even tapping their feet or swaying in time with the music. The skeptical faces softened, replaced by expressions of awe and admiration. Children watched wide-eyed, captivated by the energy and color of the performance. Older audience members nodded in recognition, appreciating the tradition and skill that had been passed down through generations. The young woman could feel the connection growing stronger, and it fueled her determination to give everything she had. As the music built to a more intense section, the young woman introduced a solo, her fingers moving quickly across the strings, creating a cascade of notes that left the audience breathless. The technical difficulty of the piece was evident, and yet she played with such ease that it appeared effortless. Each note was deliberate, each pause meaningful, creating a rhythm that was both precise and expressive. The audience could sense the dedication, practice, and passion that had gone into mastering such a performance. The Italian virtuoso leaned forward slightly, his arms crossed, his face revealing a mix of surprise and respect. He had underestimated her abilities, assuming that mariachi music could not match the skill of classical violin. Now, he was witnessing a performance that combined technical excellence with deep emotional resonance. He realized that the young woman had not only captured the audience, but also commanded a presence on stage that could not be ignored. She was proving in real time that her music was just as complex, expressive, and powerful as any classical composition. Back on stage, the young woman continued to weave stories into her music. She introduced a traditional mariachi song, one that told of a community coming together to celebrate life despite hardships. The band joined in with synchronized precision, their instruments creating layers of sound that enveloped the hall. The audience responded with applause, some even rising to their feet, swept away by the energy and authenticity of the performance. The young woman smiled, feeling the collective heartbeat of the room align with her music. She had captured their attention, and she was determined to keep it. Her eyes briefly met those of a few journalists in the audience, people who had attended expecting only the virtuoso's display. They were taking notes frantically, realizing that the story they had anticipated was shifting. This was no longer about a single performer's technical mastery. It was about cultural pride, emotional expression, and a young woman's ability to command a stage with integrity and skill. Their pens moved quickly, recording every detail, understanding that the world was witnessing something special. The young woman's performance continued to rise in intensity. She transitioned into faster, more complex pieces that required precise timing and coordination with her bandmates. The audience could feel the energy shift, the music becoming a force that filled the entire hall. She could sense their excitement, their surprise, and their admiration growing with every passing moment. The stage was no longer just a platform for performance. It had become a space of transformation where expectations were challenged and perceptions were changed. The Italian virtuoso stood quietly, unable to look away. He felt a pang of humility, recognizing that he had judged too quickly. Her performance was not about competition. It was about authenticity, passion, and connection. She had taken a traditional form of music and elevated it, showing that skill and artistry were not confined to any one style or culture. Every note she played reminded him that music was about emotion as much as technique, and that true talent could manifest in countless forms. Midway through the performance, the young woman introduced a softer, more emotional piece. Her voice carried the vulnerability and tenderness of someone who had experienced joy and sorrow alike. The audience leaned in, captivated by the honesty in her expression. The mariachi band accompanied her with subtlety, allowing the melody to shine while providing depth and texture. The hall seemed to hold its breath, absorbing the emotion and responding with gentle applause at the right moments. The young woman's eyes scanned the audience again, catching glimpses of people who had been skeptical, now fully engaged and visibly moved. She saw some wiping away tears, others smiling with recognition, and many simply listening in awe. She understood that music was a universal language, capable of transcending cultural boundaries and reaching deep into the human heart. She felt a sense of fulfillment, knowing that she was connecting with people in a way that words alone could not achieve. As the performance moved toward its climax, the young woman increased the tempo once more, blending technical skill with raw energy. Her fingers moved like lightning across the guitar strings, and her voice rose in a powerful crescendo. The mariachi band matched her intensity, creating a symphony of sound that filled every corner of the hall. The audience erupted in applause, some standing, some clapping, and others cheering. The energy was electric, a collective recognition of the talent and passion that had been poured into every note. Backstage, the Italian virtuoso finally allowed himself a small nod of respect. He understood now that his earlier comment had been short-sighted. The young woman had not only defended her music, but had elevated it to a level that demanded recognition. He felt a mix of humility and admiration, realizing that true artistry could not be measured solely by technique or tradition. Her performance had taught him a lesson about the power of authenticity and emotional connection. The young woman concluded this section of her performance with a gentle, melodic piece that allowed the audience to absorb everything they had experienced. She held the final note, letting it linger in the air, and the hall remained silent for a moment, as if collectively holding its breath. Then a wave of applause and cheers broke out, filling the space with an overwhelming sense of appreciation and admiration. She smiled, bowing slightly, acknowledging the audience without taking the focus away from the music. The energy in the hall was palpable. People were talking excitedly, sharing their impressions and discussing how unexpected and moving the performance had been. The young woman felt a deep sense of accomplishment, knowing that she had not only entertained but also inspired. She had challenged assumptions, demonstrated skill and creativity, and shared a piece of her culture with a wider audience. The connection she had forged through music was undeniable, and it left a lasting impression on everyone present. As she stepped back, preparing for the next part of the performance, the young woman felt a renewed sense of confidence. She had proven, at least for now, that her music could stand alongside any other, that mariachi was worthy of respect and admiration, and that her voice could be heard. The audience's reaction had reinforced her belief in the power of authenticity, passion, and dedication. She was ready to continue, knowing that every note she played had the potential to inspire, uplift, and move the hearts of those listening. The young woman stepped forward once again, feeling a renewed sense of purpose after the warm reception from the audience. The applause from the previous segment still lingered in the hall, filling her with confidence and motivation. She knew that this was her opportunity to showcase the depth of mariachi music, not just as a cultural tradition, but as a form of artistic expression capable of capturing the hearts of anyone willing to listen. The gentle hum of instruments tuning backstage marked the quiet before the next wave of her performance. A moment of preparation and focus. She began with a soft, traditional melody that spoke of community and celebration, the notes flowing from her guitar with a natural grace. Her voice, clear and full of emotion, carried over the room, drawing the audience in with its warmth. She could see the faces of those seated before her, some still skeptical but increasingly attentive. The simplicity of the opening notes belied the complexity that was about to unfold. Her goal was not only to entertain but to challenge preconceptions and connect deeply with everyone in the hall. Her bandmates followed her lead, their instruments weaving around the melody with harmony and precision. The trumpets added a bright, cheerful tone, while the violins provided a subtle counterpoint that enriched the overall sound. The rhythm section maintained a steady, engaging pulse, keeping the audience captivated and involved. It was clear that the young woman had spent countless hours practicing, not just for technical perfection, but to understand how to tell a story through music, how to guide the audience through emotion and energy. The young woman's performance began to evolve as she transitioned into more intricate pieces. Her fingers moved quickly across the guitar strings, producing a cascade of notes that left the audience in awe. Each chord change was deliberate, each pause meaningful, creating a rhythm that was both complex and deeply expressive. The audience could sense the dedication and passion behind every note, the countless hours of practice and the love for the music that had shaped her life. She moved seamlessly between melodies, blending traditional tunes with her own creative flourishes. The music was no longer just a performance. It was a conversation with the audience, a shared experience that invited them to feel, to reflect, and to respond. The young woman's voice rose and fell with the music, conveying stories of love, loss, hope, and celebration. Each song was carefully chosen to build momentum, leading the audience through a journey that was both emotional and exhilarating. The audience responded with enthusiasm. Some clapped along to the rhythm, others tapped their feet or swayed in time with the music. Children watched wide-eyed, mesmerized by the energy and color of the performance, while adults nodded in recognition, appreciating the skill and passion behind the music. The hall seemed alive with energy, a collective heartbeat that matched the rhythm of the young woman's performance. She felt a profound connection with the audience, a shared understanding that transcended words and cultural boundaries. Backstage, the Italian Virtuoso observed in silence. He had been impressed by her earlier performance, but now he found himself fully engaged and challenged. He had assumed that mariachi music was simple and folkloric, but he was witnessing a level of complexity and artistry that demanded respect. Her technical skill, combined with the emotional depth of her music, was undeniable. He realized that he had underestimated her talent and that her performance was a masterclass in how music could communicate stories and emotions. The young woman continued to build intensity in her performance, introducing faster, more dynamic pieces. Her fingers moved with precision and confidence, executing complex sequences with apparent ease. Her voice, strong and expressive, soared above the instruments, carrying the audience along with the highs and lows of the music. The band followed her lead perfectly, each member attuned to her cues and the flow of the performance. The result was a cohesive, immersive experience that captivated everyone in the hall. As the music grew more energetic, the young woman began a solo that showcased her technical mastery and creative improvisation. The audience leaned forward, mesmerized by the speed and accuracy of her playing, as well as the expressive phrasing that gave the piece life. She felt completely absorbed in the music, her focus entirely on the connection she was forging with the listeners. Every note was an extension of her emotions, a statement of identity and pride, a demonstration that mariachi music could be both traditional and innovative. The audience's reaction was immediate and powerful. Applause broke out, rising and falling with the tempo of her performance. People were visibly moved, some standing, some cheering, others simply absorbing the experience with rapt attention. The young woman could feel the energy of the room, the collective excitement and admiration, and it fueled her determination to give her very best. She knew that this was not just a performance, but a moment of validation, not just for herself, but for her culture and for the music she loved. Her bandmates responded with enthusiasm and precision, amplifying the impact of her performance. The trumpets added bursts of brightness, the violins created layers of melody, and the rhythm section maintained a driving pulse that kept the energy high. Together, they created a soundscape that was rich, dynamic, and deeply moving. The young woman smiled slightly, acknowledging the harmony and synergy that had developed between her and her fellow musicians. This was not just a solo act. It was a shared journey, a collaborative celebration of talent and passion. The young woman's eyes scanned the audience, taking in the expressions of awe, delight, and surprise. Some faces reflected the transformation from skepticism to admiration, as people realized that mariachi music was capable of conveying emotion, complexity, and beauty on a level equal to any classical performance. She felt a surge of pride and responsibility, knowing that she had the power to change perceptions, to challenge assumptions, and to inspire a sense of respect and appreciation for her cultural heritage. The Italian virtuoso, standing quietly in the wings, could no longer maintain his initial stance of superiority. He watched as the young woman navigated the complexities of the music with grace and confidence, commanding the stage with an authority that could not be ignored. He felt a mix of humility and admiration, recognizing that his earlier comment had been thoughtless and that he was witnessing a truly exceptional talent. The realization dawned that musical skill and artistry were not limited to any one tradition or style. They could manifest in countless forms, each with its own unique beauty and impact. Midway through the set, the young woman shifted to a more introspective piece. The music slowed, becoming gentle and lyrical, allowing the audience to absorb the emotion and depth of the performance. Her voice softened, carrying a sense of vulnerability and honesty that resonated with everyone listening. The band followed suit, creating a delicate, harmonious backdrop that highlighted the subtle nuances of her guitar and vocal performance. The hall seemed to lean in collectively, each listener attuned to the subtle emotional currents of the music. The young woman felt a profound sense of connection with the audience. She could sense their emotions, their engagement, and their appreciation. She understood that music was a universal language, capable of bridging gaps and creating shared experiences that transcended culture, language, and background. In that moment, she felt a deep responsibility to honor her heritage while also demonstrating the versatility and emotional power of mariachi music. Every note she played, every chord she struck, was an expression of love, pride, and dedication. As the performance approached its climax, the young woman increased the tempo once again. The energy in the hall rose, mirroring the intensity of the music. Her fingers moved with precision and speed, executing intricate passages with apparent ease. Her voice rose, strong and commanding, carrying the audience along with the dynamic shifts and rhythmic complexity of the piece. The band matched her energy perfectly, creating a powerful, immersive experience that left the audience fully engaged and exhilarated. The young woman's performance reached a crescendo, a moment where technical skill, emotional depth, and stage presence converged. The audience erupted in applause, some standing, some clapping, others cheering with uncontained excitement. The energy was electric, a tangible acknowledgement of her talent, passion, and dedication. The young woman smiled, bowing slightly in gratitude, but she knew that this was not just about applause. It was about recognition, connection, and respect. Backstage, the Italian virtuoso could no longer ignore the impact of her performance. He felt a genuine sense of admiration, realizing that he had underestimated not only her skill but also the power of mariachi music to move and captivate an audience. He understood that his earlier mockery had been misguided, and he felt compelled to acknowledge the artistry, dedication, and emotional resonance that she had brought to the stage. It was a humbling moment, a reminder that true talent transcends expectations and stereotypes. The young woman concluded the section of her performance with a gentle, reflective piece. The notes lingered in the air, allowing the audience to absorb the full impact of what they had just experienced. The hall remained silent for a brief moment, a collective pause that emphasized the power and significance of her music. Then a wave of applause and cheers filled the space, overwhelming in its intensity and sincerity. The young woman bowed deeply, acknowledging the audience's appreciation while remaining focused on the music itself, rather than the recognition. The energy in the hall was palpable, a testament to the connection and impact of the performance. People whispered to each other, sharing their impressions and expressing surprise and admiration. The young woman felt a deep sense of fulfillment, knowing that she had not only entertained but also inspired, challenged assumptions, and demonstrated the beauty and complexity of mariachi music. She had proven that her voice, her skill, and her heritage deserved to be heard and respected. As she stepped back, preparing for the next phase of the performance, the young woman felt a renewed sense of determination. The audience's response had validated her efforts and strengthened her resolve to continue sharing her music with authenticity, passion, and pride. She understood that this was more than a performance. It was a statement, a celebration, and an opportunity to connect, uplift, and inspire. With a deep breath and a confident smile, she prepared to continue, ready to let the music speak, to move hearts, and to leave a lasting impression on everyone who had gathered to listen. The young woman felt the energy in the hall shift as she prepared for the next piece. The audience had been captivated by the earlier performances, but she knew that this was the moment to truly command the stage. She could feel her heartbeat matching the rhythm of her music, a steady pulse that guided her fingers across the guitar strings. Her bandmates watched her closely, attuned to every subtle gesture, ready to follow her lead. This performance was not just about playing notes. It was about creating a connection, a shared experience that would resonate long after the final chord had sounded. She began with a familiar melody, one that was deeply rooted in mariachi tradition, but infused with her own style and emotion. The audience responded immediately, some nodding in recognition, others leaning forward with anticipation. She played with a combination of technical skill and expressive nuance, each note conveying both precision and feeling. Her voice, warm and clear, carried the story of the music, drawing listeners into the narrative woven by the instruments. The mariachi band complemented her perfectly. The trumpets added a bright, celebratory sound. The violins created rich harmonies, and the rhythm section provided a steady foundation that allowed her performance to soar. Each member of the band was deeply attuned to her energy, reacting to every change in tempo, every subtle shift in dynamics. Together, they created a tapestry of sound that was vibrant, immersive, and emotionally powerful. The young woman felt a sense of unity and shared purpose with her bandmates, a silent acknowledgement that they were creating something truly special. As the performance progressed, she introduced more complex passages, blending rapid strumming with intricate fingerwork on the guitar. Her voice rose and fell with the music, conveying a range of emotions from joy to melancholy, from anticipation to reflection. The audience was completely absorbed, their initial skepticism replaced by admiration and excitement. Children watched with wide eyes, captivated by the energy and skill of the performance, while adults nodded in appreciation, recognizing the artistry and dedication behind every note. Backstage, the Italian virtuoso observed quietly, his earlier confidence giving way to genuine interest and respect. He had assumed that mariachi music was simple and folkloric, but he was now witnessing a level of sophistication and artistry that challenged his assumptions. The young woman's performance combined technical mastery, emotional depth, and stage presence in a way that demanded attention and admiration. He realized that he had underestimated her abilities and the power of mariachi music to move and engage an audience. The young woman transitioned seamlessly into a faster, more energetic piece. Her fingers moved with precision and speed, executing intricate sequences that highlighted her technical skill. Her voice carried over the ensemble, strong and expressive, guiding the audience through the twists and turns of the music. The band matched her intensity, creating a dynamic and immersive soundscape that filled the hall. The audience was captivated, clapping along, tapping their feet, and leaning forward to catch every note. The energy in the room was electric, a tangible acknowledgement of the young woman's talent and command of the stage. She felt a surge of confidence and exhilaration as she played, feeding off the audience's energy and the synergy with her bandmates. Every note, every chord, every vocal inflection was deliberate, a reflection of her dedication, creativity, and passion. She knew that this was her moment to shine, to demonstrate not only her skill but also the richness and complexity of mariachi music. The performance was becoming more than a display of talent. It was a statement, a celebration, and a bridge between cultures and expectations. The young woman introduced a solo section, allowing her fingers to explore the full range of the guitar. The notes flowed effortlessly, cascading in rapid sequences that left the audience in awe. Each movement was precise yet imbued with emotion, demonstrating that technical skill and expressive depth were not mutually exclusive. She could see the reactions of the audience, their faces lighting up with surprise, admiration, and joy. The hall was alive with energy, a collective response to the power and beauty of the performance. The Italian virtuoso's expression shifted as he watched. He had never expected to be impressed in this way by mariachi music. He recognized that the young woman's performance was not just technically accomplished, but also deeply moving. Her ability to connect with the audience, to convey emotion through her music, and to command the stage with such confidence was remarkable. He felt a sense of humility and respect, acknowledging silently that his earlier judgment had been misplaced. As the young woman continued, she wove in elements of improvisation, adding unexpected twists and turns that kept the audience engaged and excited. Her bandmates responded instinctively, following her lead and enhancing the musical narrative. The performance was fluid, dynamic, and alive, a conversation between the musicians and the audience that transcended words. She could sense the growing admiration and respect, not only for her skill but also for the authenticity and passion she brought to every note. The music shifted again, becoming slower and more reflective. The young woman's voice softened, carrying a sense of vulnerability and honesty that resonated deeply with the audience. The band followed suit, creating a delicate and nuanced backdrop that highlighted the subtle emotional currents of the performance. The audience leaned in, fully absorbed, their attention rapt as they experienced the depth and complexity of the music. It was a moment of intimacy, a shared emotional journey that connected the stage and the audience in a profound way. The young woman's eyes scanned the hall, taking in the faces of those who had been skeptical, now fully engaged and visibly moved. She saw expressions of surprise, admiration, and emotional connection, and felt a deep sense of fulfillment. Music had the power to break down barriers, to bridge gaps between cultures and perspectives, and she was witnessing that power in real time. She knew that her performance was making an impact, not just as entertainment, but as a statement of cultural pride and artistic excellence. As the performance approached its climax, the young woman increased the tempo once more. The energy in the hall rose, mirroring the intensity of the music. Her fingers moved with precision and speed, executing complex passages with apparent ease. Her voice soared above the ensemble, guiding the audience through the dynamic shifts and rhythmic intricacies of the piece. The band matched her intensity perfectly, creating a rich and immersive soundscape that left the audience enthralled. Every element of the performance was working together to create a powerful and unforgettable experience. The audience responded with enthusiasm and excitement. People clapped along to the rhythm, some stood in admiration, others cheered with uncontained joy. The young woman could feel the collective energy, the shared appreciation and emotional response, and it fueled her determination to give her best. She knew that this moment was not just about technical skill, but about connection, expression, and the ability to inspire. The stage had become a space of transformation, where music bridged gaps, changed perceptions, and touched hearts. Backstage, the Italian virtuoso allowed himself to feel a sense of awe and respect. He realized that his earlier assumptions had been wrong, that mariachi music was far more sophisticated and emotionally resonant than he had imagined. The young woman had not only defended her music, but had elevated it to a level that demanded recognition. He understood that true artistry could manifest in many forms, each with its own unique beauty and impact. The performance had challenged his perspective and taught him a valuable lesson about humility, respect, and the universality of music. The young woman transitioned into the final section of her performance, blending technical mastery, emotional depth, and stage presence into a cohesive and compelling conclusion. The audience was fully engaged, their attention rapt, their appreciation evident in every gesture and expression. She felt a deep sense of connection and accomplishment, knowing that she had captured their hearts and minds. Every note, every chord, every vocal inflection was a reflection of her dedication, passion, and pride in her heritage. As the last notes of her performance faded into the air, the hall erupted in applause, cheers, and standing ovations. The energy was overwhelming, a collective acknowledgement of her talent, authenticity, and artistic excellence. The young woman bowed deeply, acknowledging the audience's appreciation while remaining humble and focused on the music itself. She had proven in a way that words could not convey that mariachi music was powerful, complex, and capable of commanding any stage. The Italian virtuoso approached her backstage, offering sincere congratulations. He admitted that he had underestimated her and the depth of mariachi music, His tone was filled with respect and admiration, a reflection of the lessons he had learned from witnessing her performance. The young woman smiled, accepting his acknowledgement with grace and humility. She had not only showcased her own talent, but had also elevated the perception of her music, leaving a lasting impression on everyone present. The young woman left the stage with a sense of fulfillment and pride. She had faced skepticism, overcome challenges, and demonstrated the power of authenticity, passion, and dedication. The audience had witnessed not just a performance, but a statement, a celebration, and a connection that transcended expectations and stereotypes. She had proven that music, when played from the heart and with skill, could move people, bridge cultures, and inspire admiration and respect. The night had been a triumph, not only for her but for the music she loved and the heritage she represented. The young woman stepped back from the stage for a moment, taking a deep breath as the applause continued to resonate through the hall. The energy of the audience was infectious, a wave of admiration and excitement that seemed to fill every corner of the room. She could feel the pride and joy of her bandmates, their eyes shining with shared accomplishment. This moment was not just about her performance. It was about the connection they had all created together, the music that had carried their emotions to the hearts of everyone listening. As she looked out into the crowd, she noticed the range of reactions around her. Some faces were full of surprise, others glowing with admiration, and many simply captivated, completely absorbed in the experience. The young woman understood that music had a unique power to unite, to inspire, and to break down barriers. She felt a deep sense of fulfillment, knowing that she had not only shared her talent but also created a moment of understanding and appreciation for mariachi music. The young woman and her bandmates began the final segment of their performance. She selected a piece that combined the technical complexity of their earlier songs with the emotional depth they had explored throughout the night. Her fingers moved with skill and precision across the guitar strings, while her voice carried the story of resilience, hope, and celebration. Each member of the band contributed their part, creating a rich, layered sound that captivated the audience from the first note. The music flowed seamlessly, building intensity and emotion with each passing measure. The young woman's voice rose and fell with the melody, guiding the audience through the narrative embedded in the music. Her eyes scanned the hall and she could see people leaning forward, their attention fully focused on the performance. Children clapped along, some bouncing in their seats with excitement, while adults nodded in appreciation, recognizing the skill and dedication behind every note. The hall was alive with shared emotion, a testament to the power of music to touch hearts. Backstage, the Italian virtuoso watched intently. He had been impressed before, but now he felt a deeper respect and admiration for the young woman's artistry. He realized that her performance was not just a display of technical skill, but a demonstration of the power of music to connect, to communicate, and to inspire. The combination of precision, emotion, and cultural authenticity had created a performance that was unforgettable. He felt a sense of humility, acknowledging silently that he had been wrong to underestimate her and the depth of mariachi music. The young woman shifted to a faster, more energetic piece. Her fingers danced across the guitar, creating intricate patterns and rhythms that challenged both her skill and the audience's expectations. Her voice carried over the ensemble, strong and confident, guiding the music with authority and passion. The band matched her energy perfectly, each member contributing to the dynamic and immersive soundscape. The audience responded with enthusiasm, clapping along, cheering, and moving with the rhythm. The energy in the hall was electric, a tangible reflection of the performance's impact. As the piece reached its peak, the young woman introduced an improvised section, allowing her creativity and technical mastery to shine. The audience was captivated, their attention fixed on her every move. She played with a combination of precision and emotion, each note conveying a story and a sense of authenticity that resonated deeply. The band followed her lead seamlessly, their instruments weaving around her music to create a cohesive and powerful performance. The hall was filled with sound, energy, and emotion, leaving the audience spellbound. The young woman could feel the connection with the audience growing stronger with every note. She understood that music was more than just performance. It was a form of communication, a bridge between people, cultures, and emotions. She had taken a traditional form of music and infused it with her own creativity and passion, demonstrating that mariachi was capable of captivating and inspiring audiences in any setting. The audience's response confirmed that she had succeeded, their applause and cheers reinforcing the impact of her performance. Midway through the segment, the music shifted to a slower, more reflective piece. The young woman's voice softened, carrying a sense of vulnerability and emotion that touched the hearts of everyone listening. The band provided a delicate and supportive backdrop, allowing her voice and guitar to shine. The audience leaned in, captivated by the nuance and depth of the music. This moment of introspection allowed them to connect with the performance on a deeper emotional level, appreciating both the skill and the sincerity behind each note. The young woman continued, her performance evolving to include a variety of tempos, rhythms, and emotional expressions. She navigated complex passages with ease, demonstrating her technical mastery while maintaining a strong emotional connection with the audience. Her voice conveyed stories of love, loss, hope, and resilience, creating a rich tapestry of emotion that resonated deeply. The audience was fully engaged, their reactions reflecting the journey they were experiencing alongside her music. The Italian virtuoso remained in awe, realizing the full scope of her talent. He had assumed that mariachi music was limited in complexity and artistic depth, but he was witnessing a performance that combined technical skill, emotional resonance, and cultural authenticity in a way that was truly remarkable. He felt a sense of respect and admiration, recognizing that her artistry had challenged his assumptions and expanded his understanding of music. Her performance was a powerful reminder that true talent could transcend styles, traditions, and expectations. As the performance neared its conclusion, the young woman brought back the energy and intensity that had captivated the audience earlier. Her fingers moved swiftly across the guitar, executing intricate passages with precision and flair. Her voice soared, carrying the music with confidence and emotion. The band matched her energy perfectly, creating a vibrant and immersive soundscape that filled the hall. The audience responded with a standing ovation, their applause and cheers reflecting the impact of the performance. The young woman smiled, bowing deeply in gratitude. She had not only shared her talent, but also conveyed the richness and beauty of mariachi music. The audience's reaction was a testament to the power of authenticity, passion, and dedication. She had demonstrated that music was a universal language, capable of connecting people across cultures and inspiring admiration and respect. The performance had been a triumph, both for her and for the cultural tradition she represented. Backstage, the Italian virtuoso approached her with genuine admiration. He offered sincere congratulations, acknowledging the skill, creativity, and emotional depth of her performance. He admitted that he had underestimated her and the potential of mariachi music. The young woman accepted his recognition with humility and grace, knowing that her performance had not only entertained but also inspired understanding and respect. The interaction reflected the transformative power of music to bridge differences and create mutual appreciation. The young woman and her bandmates stepped away from the stage, their hearts full of pride and satisfaction. They had faced skepticism, overcome challenges, and demonstrated the power of music to captivate and inspire. The audience's response had reinforced the value of authenticity, dedication, and cultural pride. The young woman felt a deep sense of fulfillment, knowing that she had shared her voice, her talent, and her heritage with integrity and passion. As the hall slowly emptied, the young woman reflected on the night's events. She had experienced a journey that went beyond performance, a journey that involved connection, expression, and mutual respect. She had challenged assumptions, elevated perceptions, and left a lasting impression on everyone who had witnessed her music. The experience reinforced her belief in the power of music to transcend barriers, unite people, and inspire admiration and understanding. The young woman's performance had been more than a display of talent. It had been a statement of identity, pride, and cultural richness. She had demonstrated that mariachi music was capable of commanding any stage, engaging any audience, and leaving a lasting impact. Her journey that night reflected the dedication, passion, and skill required to achieve excellence, as well as the courage to challenge expectations and assert the value of one's heritage. The young woman left the hall with a renewed sense of purpose, knowing that her music had touched hearts, inspired admiration, and celebrated the richness of her culture in a powerful and unforgettable way.